Welcome to LFN News, a production of LFN Media, bringing you the latest in celebrity news, with specific analysis to keep you in the know of what is going on around you. If you are new to this channel, please subscribe, and hit the bell icon, so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Not many people seem to know that R. Kelly's 30-year sentence is inclusive of 5 years under supervised release, as this was not largely publicized. One could think the team behind his conviction was in itself unsure Kelly would be doing the whole 30-year sentence in jail, as if they were certain of an impending appeal with a high chance of sentence reversal. This basically means that, should the current sentence still hold after 25 years, then R. Kelly would be effectively released into the community, but would still be supervised by a federal officer all through the period to ensure he adheres to the supervised release conditions. Judge Ann M. Donnelly, who had also presided over the 6-week-long trial, was not lenient at all, with her conditional restrictions for R. Kelly's 5-year supervised release. After being held for more than a year in Brooklyn, Chicago-born R&B star was finally moved to Chicago's Metropolitan Correctional Center on West Van Buren Street. Kelly, who was found guilty of racketeering and violation of the Mann Act in a largely circumstantial trial when he was tried in a Brooklyn federal court, was given specific guidelines to follow when he is released from prison and placed under supervised release, after he has served the original 25-year jail time. After being released, R. Kelly will have to receive treatment for some particular disorders to ensure he seamlessly reintegrates into the community, reports say. This is indeed ironic. If the prosecutors were so much concerned about R. Kelly's health and mental status, they would have advised for this treatment to be done immediately, and not after spending 25 years in jail. How sure are they even of Kelly's health and mental state 25 years from now? Can we even count on him having the same state of mind 25 years later? What a joke. Prosecutors in his New York case claimed Kelly is allegedly particularly dangerous to society, because he allegedly persisted in his criminal activity for years, even after being indicted in Chicago in 2002 on related charges. For them to assume he is dangerous over the mere incompetence of their prosecutors is equally far-reaching. Prosecution has always looked for an opportunity to discredit R. Kelly and paint him as a monster, as a scapegoat for their own incompetence. According to Judge Ann Donnelly, the R&B king will need to receive mental health treatment after his release. In accordance with court documents, he will undergo therapy for an undisclosed illness and must refrain from all interaction with anyone under the age of 18. Additionally, it was learned that he will only be permitted to interact with people under the age of 18 if they are family members, or if they are doing it in a therapeutic setting with an adult in charge. Typical joke. Even if someone was actually genuinely guilty of the charges alleged against R. Kelly, how practical is the decision that they can't interact with anyone under the age of 18? And what would be the actual implication? Court documents further indicate that his probation officer would need to first give his consent for any of the aforementioned possibilities. Once Kelly is released, should the current sentence still hold, he would have to stay under supervised release for a whole 5 years. Ideally, if the sentence is to hold for the full term, Kelly would actually be serving a whole 30 years because with all these restrictions, his supervised release would be as good as actual jail. Just imagine having to adhere to all that for a whole 5 years. Besides, R. Kelly still has a pending federal trial in Chicago that has been slated for 15th August and other 2 state trials, and if he is found guilty a second time, he'll probably be subject to even more restrictions in addition to the aforementioned. R. Kelly would have to abide by the supervised release restrictions by the letter or risk being sent back to prison immediately. As is always the norm, during supervised release, the defendant must fully abide by the conditions of release and be supervised by a probation officer at all times. A former prisoner who violates the conditions of supervised release may be sent back to prison, potentially to remain there until the end of the supervised release term. The judge retains jurisdiction over a defendant's supervised release and will be in position to make decisions regarding early termination for good behavior or modification or revocation for violations. Whether R. Kelly would have the chance to see an early termination for good behavior remains doubtable, given the level of prejudice and unjust that has characterized his entire trial and conviction. It is easy, however, to confuse supervised release for parole, yet the two are two different concepts. While parole is a form of early, conditional release from prison, supervised release occurs post-imprisonment and is limited to a set term of years, such as 3 or 5 years. It doesn't take the place of prison time like parole. Rather, it's a period of oversight that the defendant must serve after completing their prison sentence. Additionally, a federal judge orders and sets conditions of supervised release at sentencing, just like was the case for R. Kelly, while a parole board considers an inmate's request for parole during incarceration. If granted, the parole board or other corrections official then sets the conditions of parole. And what about probation? You may ask. Similar to supervised release, a judge, rather than a separate board, makes decisions regarding probation. But unlike supervised release, which occurs after completion of a prison sentence, probation is served in lieu of a person's prison sentence. It's usually a chance for the offender to serve their sentence in the community while being supervised and potentially avoid prison. R. Kelly, however, was not lucky enough to get probation time, nor a chance of parole in his sentence. It is no wonder he is appealing it, and should the appeal turn out successful, then the sentence and its supervised release restrictions will be irrelevant. Based on the seriousness of Jennifer Bonjean's arguments in her planned appeal, it will be no surprise to anyone if R. Kelly eventually walks away as a free man, just like Bill Cosby, after the case and sentence are acquitted. Although the outcome of the upcoming Chicago case will also help determine R. Kelly's fate, the already existing evidence implies this is a weak case for prosecution, and R. Kelly surely has a chance at walking free of all the Chicago charges, pushing an inch closer to full freedom. All that would still be standing in the way are the other 2 state trials, which in themselves may not have enough budget to take him on. Please let us know what you think of these stringent supervised release conditions in the comment section below. That's all we had for you today. Thank you for watching LFN News, a production of LFN Media, giving you another view of issues at hand. To get notified whenever we post a new video, subscribe to this channel now and hit the notification icon. And remember to give us your comment on the subject matter below.